Joining me now is filmmaker and commentator Ami Horowitz. Ami, tell me about these protests. Who is behind them? They seem to be very similar. They don't seem to be all that organic.
Yeah, and it just does not matter to them what the reality is on the ground. It doesn't matter to them what success can come from these type of attacks, right? This kind of defense of democracy, defense of the people. The Venezuela, and you have to ask yourself, do they care that Venezuelans are happy when Maduro's no longer there? Are they not happy or thrilled that the Iranians are celebrating now that the mullahs are being killed? That they're now having finally, hopefully, they can taste some freedom? No, this is a larger issue involved where you have people who are trying to undermine the United States, undermine our foreign policy. They are aligned with our enemies, okay? This is what we have, and yes, of course, it's AstroTurf. Of course, these are pre-printed signs. Things are all connected. When you go to Minneapolis, right, and you see those, when I showed you those signs being taken off of trucks, this is all the same part of this leftist agenda where they're trying to undermine the United States and the moves that we're making and President Trump are trying to make.
Well, you know what? You hit the nail on the head there, aligned with our enemies. It doesn't matter who the enemies are, if they're from the left, if they're from the Islamist world, whatever they are, communists, socialists, as long as they're against the US, again, against Western civilization, these people seem to be in lockstep with them. And I want to talk to you about that unholy alliance that we're seeing in the West. I've been writing about it for more than a decade. This unholy alliance between Islamists and left-wingers. And there was one in Iran as well before the Islamic Revolution. And this is something the left don't seem to understand, Ami, that they are just useful idiots in this alliance. They will be discarded as soon as they stop being useful. And that's precisely what happened in Iran. Once the Islamic Revolution was complete and the Islamists took charge with the help of the communists, they killed all the communists, Ami.
Yeah, same can be said about the French Revolution. Look, of course, that's the question people always ask themselves. Like, I don't understand. What does the left have in common with Islam? And the reality is, what do they have in common? Hatred of Western values, self-hatred, okay? What they see is victimhood, right? They look at themselves as victims. They see Islam as victims, and they see their common enemy is success. Their common enemy is the free market. Their common enemy is Western liberal values, even though they're not liberals. These are not liberals. These are hard leftists who want dictatorship, who want autocracy. That's what they want because they know that their ideals are the only ones that can be supreme, and therefore you can't allow for freedom and a multiplicity of voices. That's why they're similar.
Now, your mayor, New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani, has been accused of rooting for the Ayatollah after his comments about the strikes against the Iranian regime. He wrote on X, "Today's military strikes on Iran, carried out by the United States and Israel, mark a catastrophic escalation in an illegal war of aggression, bombing cities, killing civilians, opening a new theatre of war. Americans do not want this. They do not want another war in pursuit of regime change." Ami, I can't say I'm terribly surprised here. He is a leftist and some would argue he's also a Islamist.
Yeah, but it's not just him, right? I mean, it's almost universally the Democrats outside of John Fetterman, right? And they got to ask themselves, they're standing against, look at all the Iranians celebrating around the world. They're standing against the Iranian people, right? Why? Because they don't like Donald Trump, and Donald Trump can do no right. That's what it really all comes down to. And, you have to ask yourself, Democrats, who are you standing with? Do you know who you're standing with? You know who's condemning the Iranian attacks? Russia is, China is, Tucker Carlson is, Nick Fuentes is, Marjorie Taylor Greene is. Yeah, by the way, that statement that Marjorie Taylor Greene made about, oh, look at all the innocent civilians being killed by Trump. Oh, really? What? You didn't say one word about 32,000 Iranians that were slaughtered by the mullahs. Not a word, okay? And the criticism is like, well, this is unprovoked attack. I'm sorry. I'm so sick of that, okay? Look, when the Iranian regime has killed probably thousands of American citizens, okay, and American soldiers directly or through their proxy, and killed U.S. allies, including Israel, okay, when Iran has tried to assassinate our president, let's be very clear. They tried to assassinate our president. I'm sorry, the president has the right to retaliate when he seems fit. Today is when he saw fit. It wasn't unprovoked. It was very, very provoked. And by the way, Libya did a whole lot less, right? And we attacked them. And frankly, Russia did a lot less, okay, to the United States directly. And then we supported attacking them. I'm sorry, Democrats, you're on the wrong side of history.
Now, we've got more on Iran and Cuba shortly because there's a lot of agitation there from Cubans saying, we want to be next. Can we also be liberated, please? But first, let's go to Austin, Texas, a possible domestic terrorism offence in the city's Party District, 6th Street, where a migrant who was allowed to be naturalised despite a growing criminal record went on a shooting rampage, killing 3 people. Ami, this is being investigated as a possible Islamist terror attack. What do we know so far?
Yeah, I mean, he was wearing a shirt that said property of Allah. He had a Quran. There's the picture right there. He had a Quran in his car. So we clearly know this is a terrorist attack, even though they were saying, well, we're not sure what the motivation was. I don't know how more clear you could be on the motivation, frankly. It was a drive-by shooting initially. Then he calmly parked the car, came out, started shooting people on the sidewalk. Absolutely horrific in a very popular area of Austin. I've been there I was just there a couple weeks ago, frankly, walking down the street and having a couple cocktails right along that promenade. Yeah, he first came to this country in 2000. Then he married somebody and became a U.S. citizen. And he was arrested 4 times, both before he became a citizen and after he became a citizen. But I promise you, the Democrats will fight tooth and nail against his deportation, right? They're not going to allow ICE to lay a finger on this guy. It's crazy. And it really comes down, look, I'm sorry, we got to be real here. You know, this immigration question. We should not take in whoever wants to come in. We have to be judicial and choose who we want. I am pro-immigration. I am a product of immigration. I love it. Our country is better for it. But I'm sorry, guys, despite ChatGPT's best efforts to deter me from coming up with these numbers, okay, I looked the last 35 years. I could have looked more than that. In 35 years, every single immigrant to this country who committed a terrorist attack was Islamic. Every single one. I'm sorry. Those are just the numbers, okay? Even though they make up 5% of the immigration to this country, they make up 100% of the terrorist attacks. So I don't know what to tell you guys. I'm sorry.
Ami, I'm sure there'll be groups saying that those figures are not accurate. It's all about how you define terrorism, but that's an argument for another day. There is no issue in stating very clearly there is a massive overrepresentation, and it's one that needs to be tackled, and it's evident in a number of Western countries. It's not a problem just in the US. Now, let's check in with a lefty losing any grip on reality. This is Human Potato, Brian Stelter on CNN.
But I can tell you, Ellison has talked in recent months about how he wants to sustain the news business in the United States. And he's talked about his belief that, quote, the majority of the country longs for news that is balanced and is fact-based. And Wolf, that sure sounds a lot like CNN's mission. A lot of similarities.
I mean, what can you say to that? The man is delusional. And this is a little bit of hilarity as well. The Daily Show host Jon Stewart has said the media squandered trust with its Trump-Russia collusion narrative. He made those Captain Obvious comments during his podcast when speaking to an MSN Now host. I mean, he's been part of the problem. It's all well and good to say now that the Russian collusion hoax was a hoax, but when was he when it was actually happening? He has been complicit in so much of this lunacy.
Yeah, you asked what planet Brian Stelter lives on? Yeah, soon to be the planet of unemployment. I think that's what he's really worried about, because there's going to be an overhauling for sure at CNN when Barry Weiss comes in. Yeah, Captain Obvious is exactly, I couldn't have put it better for Jon Stewart. Yeah, I'm sorry, John. You just have no credibility with me, right? I mean, where were you? Where were you to condemn the Democrats when they were pushing the hoax? I didn't hear your voice in that chorus pushing back against the Democrats. Or where were you calling for the investigation of all those national security people who signed that letter saying that the laptop was
laptop Russian.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You just don't get a whole lot of credit for me for coming up with things that we all saw from the get-go. Zero credit.
Well done. Now, we've seen the fall of dictators in Venezuela and Iran, thanks to President Trump. And now Cubans are begging President Trump to liberate them too. I don't speak Spanish, but I understood pretty much every word of that. And in Miami, where so many Cubans have fled, they were also asking the president to help free their home country. Army, they've got signs saying Cuba next. Is there an appetite from the Trump administration to look at Cuba and have some sort of regime change there?
Oh no, I'm sure he would love that, no question. Not sure he's going to engage in the next month or two. But why wouldn't the Cubans want a slice of freedom pie, right? They see dictators falling all around the world, and they're saying, "Hey, when's our turn?" Look, they want that for a reason. This move against Iran was one of the biggest foreign policy move in decades. There's no hyperbole there, okay? When these things have follow-on effects, right? When you make a move, it has ramifications. And if you look at, obviously, Afghanistan, right, led to the invasion of Ukraine because Russia saw blood in the water. It saw weakness. Well, this is the converse of that. The world is seeing U.S. strength and determination. And the follow-on effects are also going to be quite obvious. Look, if you're a Taiwanese, you think Taiwan is more or less likely to be invaded today by China, right? Look, there are moments in time in history where people made moves and people sat on the sidelines. And think about how different the world would be if the U.S. and the West supported Chiang Kai-shek against the Russian communists, right? What would the world look like if we did that? Or what would the world look like if the U.S. and the West supported the whites against the reds in the Bolshevik Revolution, which led to nearly 100 years of Soviet domination in their sphere, the greatest geopolitical enemy the U.S. has ever seen? What could have the world look like? Well, guess what? One of those days was here, and Donald Trump took advantage of that, and we're going to see follow-on effects for years.
Now, Ami, we saw the protests in New York, but there were also celebrations in New York. Let's have a quick look. There was deep gratitude to the US there, to the Trump administration, and even in the bluest of blue cities, Washington, D.C., where more than 90% vote Democrat, even for Kamala, she got 92.5% of the vote, they were celebrating Trump's leadership. Ami, this is a turn up for the books. I never thought people would be doing the Trump dance and having these sorts of rallies in places like Manhattan and DC, which are as blue can get.
Yeah, well, look, these are the Iranians. I mean, there isn't a majority support among Iranians for what happened. There is universal support for Iranians what happened, which, again, goes back to the Democrats saying, hey, who are you standing with, right? The Iranian people or the mullahs? Because you seem to be supporting the mullah position over the Iranian people's position. But look, Trump should win a Nobel Prize for this alone. Never mind all the other stuff he's done or the stuff he's going to do going forward. For this alone, he has freed... Never mind, again, the geopolitical implications we talked about. He has freed, or will be freeing, hopefully, the Iranian people from decades of poverty, of autocratic repression. I mean, we complain here about 5% inflation. What's their 50% inflation for years? Their currency is worthless. They can't buy anything. Okay, gays are being hung. People are being forced to have trans surgeries, forced to, in Iran. Women are oppressed. This is the freedom that's at stake for the Iranian people. And people in this country and the UN and others are talking about Trump being, this is a failure. This is a terrible thing. This is an absolute wonderful thing that Donald Trump has done.
Ami Horowitz, thanks for your time.